Welcome to Blending the Family, the podcast. Topics can range from what is good wine on a first date, parenting tips, and not being afraid to ask for help. Here's your host, who was a stay at home dad and was actually outsourced, Tommy Maloney.
Welcome to another edition of the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney. You having a good day? You having a good evening? You having a good drive, a good run, a good bike ride, a good walking the dog? Maybe you're walking your pet zebra. I don't know. I can't see you. But I'm excited that you are here. Thanks for tuning in. If this is your first time, again, my name's Tommy. My last name's Maloney. I'm the host of this podcast. And just, again, excited that you are here. I am hanging out in beautiful Pinedale, Wyoming. Extremely cold. Extremely cold. Right now I have the heat off because I didn't want the heater to interfere with this recording. So I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible because it's cold in this room. You doing good? I know I mentioned that, but I'm concerned. I'm always concerned about you. Weird day, walking out of the hotel and going to the dreaded job. And as I was driving, I realized I forgot my wedding ring. That rare. Have you ever done that? Men, ladies, have you ever forgotten your wedding ring? It felt weird all day. I guess I could have gone back, but I don't know. I don't know why I didn't do it. I know we've had some gaps in new episodes. Part of it is, I hate to admit this, but GarageBand. So for those that don't know, but when I record these podcast episodes, I use a recording platform called GarageBand. It's an Apple product, and they updated their GarageBand version, and it's throwing me off. So I'm still playing around. I'm still learning the ins and outs of this different version that I'm used to. So my apologies, and I hope you accept my apologies. All right, on this episode, we have Lauren Raymond on, and I'll go through her bio in a little bit, but I just want to mention this is another episode where, and again, if this is your first time listening, I'm going to share with you with some of these episodes where the guests interview me, and this is a prime example of a guest interviewing the host, and I had a blast with Lauren. She is also a Colorado. Oh my gosh, speak English, Tommy. She also lives in Colorado, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. Anyway, part of our conversation deals with, well, I shouldn't say part of it, but one specific part happened this past weekend. This past weekend, the boy, as he is known by his bonus sisters, the boy, had a hockey tournament this weekend. And it was awesome because it was just he and I the whole weekend. I haven't seen him in a while. Haven't had quality time with him because he works on Saturdays a lot, and so therefore by the time he gets done with work, it's too late for us. When I say us, my wife Ann and I, to go down and pick him up, and so it gets frustrating not being able to see your kids on your weekend, but I understand. I mean, I'm so super proud of him because he's got this work ethic and he enjoys the job, so that's kind of cool. He enjoys the people he works with. He's created new friends because of it. But anyway, one of the things we talk about in this podcast with Lauren, she asked me a question, and this question actually had been resonating with me, and the question was about what is something if you could wave a magic wand. And I talked about how I don't want to travel anymore for work. I want to be home. But another question that came up was something I've wanted to do for a while and I've been too afraid to ask. So there's the cliche of, if you don't ask the question, the answer is automatically no. Well, what I wanted to do was I want to ask both my bonus daughter Becca and Connor this question, and the question is, how am I doing as a dad? How can I be better as a dad and supporting you and just being better? And so I actually asked Connor that question this past weekend, and I think it threw him off, and maybe it wasn't the right place. It was in the car. Maybe I should have waited till he got back from his game, and maybe we should have done it in the hotel room. I don't know. If there was a perfect time or a perfect place for it, but I still want to ask the question. And so he just said, "You're good. We're good." And I'm like, "Okay." So there we go. So I would love for you to ask your kids that same question. Ask them, how are you doing as a mom? How are you doing as a dad? How can you support them? How can you be better at being a parent from their eyes, from their world? Send me an email, tommy@blendingthefamily.com. Tommy@blendingthefamily.com. Would love to hear your answers about that. So let's talk about Lauren. Let's talk about why Lauren Raymond is on this episode. So going from her bio, Lauren Raymond is an elementary educator and founder of Daily Joy LLC, where she privately coaches parents to build joyful, in capital letters, joyful homes where everyone feels loved, heard, and nurtured so that their house can truly be a sanctuary of peace. Her program is based on creating joy in 3 areas: self, relationships, and parenting. Together, this creates joyful homes. So without further ado, this is my interview with Lauren Raymond. Again, she's asking me the questions. I'm just sitting there and freaking out, going, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. People are going to find out even more wacky worldness of me. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I really do. And some of the questions Lauren asks, you might want to take and use as well in your own family. Okay? So there you go. Lauren Raymond, you can find her out on the Instagram, which is Lauren's Daily Joy. Lauren's Daily Joy. Her website, dailyjoy.us. Dailyjoy.us. Email her at lauren@dailyjoy.us. One more time. Email her at lauren@dailyjoy.us, and you can find her on the Facebook, Lauren's Daily Joy. And all that stuff will be in the show notes as well. All right. As Terry Crews would say, all right, so now we're recording. So, like I said, I'm an open book. I'm excited about this. I want to, help you out, help parents out, help the world out. How's
Warning.
that?
You're about to listen to a conversation, not an interview.
I love it. Well, this is awesome. This is exciting. And again, just thanks for being an open book. Sometimes people struggle sharing this.
Well, no, and let me give you a quick little backstory. Is that when I got remarried, my wife asked me if I'd be okay going to, marriage counseling, because we didn't want to repeat the same mistakes we had just, gotten out of crappy marriages. And so even as a teenager, one thing I have shared with the podcast listeners is that I've battled depression since a very young age. So I've gone through therapy. I am pro therapy, and I'm just again all about sharing, and hopefully whatever we talk about, hopefully we just help somebody out.
Yes, well, that would be great. I have realized in the last few people that I have talked with, we've always circled back to one thing after I've asked a few questions, and it's been really neat because they as well have been open to just me sharing what I'm learning from them on how they are doing certain things in their life to just live more happier and joyful and open to other people learning it if it helps them too. So
I
that's
agree.
awesome.
I
I think the
agree.
more that
So,
we all do that, the better it is for
where do you
everybody.
want to start?
Well, I'm going to start just asking you a few questions, if that's okay. And anything you can elaborate and share would be wonderful. And then we can always circle back to, if we have time, to one, or, kind of looking more in depth in one if we want to. I just, so you know, these are questions related around joy and a person's life, like their personal life, and then their life with their family, their life with a significant other, if there is one, their life as a parent, and then just how much somebody lives in joy on a daily basis. So
Good start.
I will
Question one
start
is
with question
always a good
one.
start.
Okay, so thinking about it is. All right, so thinking about just yourself personally with no one else involved, what do you feel you need more of for yourself? Would it be more
Wow.
self-care or mindset?
Great start. Um, I would have to say mindset. And for me personally, it's at times having a more positive mindset. Um, you know, for me personally, and quite honestly, Lauren, it's about self confidence and knowing that I can do things,
Mhm.
and taking that mindset of, yeah, I can do this, I can do that, and along the mindset is the negative self talk, and so I try to eliminate as best I can negative self talk. So again, definitely having a better positive mindset of who I am. Yeah,
Mm.
take as many as you want. Just don't take mine.
I'm just taking a few notes. I hope that's
What does
okay.
that mean?
What do you what do you do to I love how you just said you try to eliminate self-talk. That's really hard. That's really hard to do, I think, for most people, because it can definitely just take over, and then we get into that downward spiral, and it's hard to get out of that. What do you have certain strategies that you use to eliminate that, or
I really want to
just become
say
aware of it?
that
Or what do you do?
I have some kind of positive mantra that I turn to, but at times, as a you caught me on a really at a good time, but a really crappy week. So this has been a lot of having a lot of negative self talk, and luckily for me, as much as of an introvert that I am, um, so right. Let me a quick behind the curtain for the listeners is when Lauren called me right before we went to record this. I was actually with some of my friends, my work friends, and they've been very supportive in what I've been going through personally this week, work wise. And so, like I was saying, Lauren, as much as I'm an introvert, at times I need uh, people around me. I need people to help see that, um, work wise. As my joke is, I work. I have a dreaded day job. Is what I've always said about having a day job. It's a dreaded day job. But when if I'm surrounded by good people, positive people, fun people, it will take that negative self talk and eliminate it because I'm with people that understand what I'm going through. And then at the same time, being able to share things, what they're going through, and just supporting each other. So I guess the long story is just being in a very supportive, positive um, group it really helps me. And again, the ironic thing is I'm a major introvert, so there are, again, times where I need positive energy around me.
Mhm. Wow, that's awesome. That I love that because I it just makes me think of a class I'm taking. It's called the Science of Well-being. It's from Yale University, and one of the aspects the professor talks about is the importance of social connection. And so you just completely talked about that important piece and how that important piece of social connection and when you need it. And it's obvious that you look
Yeah,
for
and
those times where
it's
you can
funny
take advantage of that
because
and actually incorporate that.
um,
Um,
I think it goes back to what you were talking about earlier about what types of questions you're going to ask. And I'm very blessed that my wife will recognize times where I'm just it's not necessarily low energy. It's just I'm feeling down about something, and like I said, there are times where the the best way I've ever heard it described is what I've borrowed from somebody, and that is when I call my depression fog. So there are times where the fog rolls in, and luckily for me, my wife will recognize it, and she'll be very supportive. She'll help me um, get through those times. And as I've gotten older, I've realized more and more. Matter of fact, oh, gosh, I don't remember who, if it was Fortune 500 or Inc. had a recent article talking about how a lot of us men don't have social connections. We don't have as many friendships versus what women have. And I've realized that for the past years that I really don't have a lot of true friends that I can hang with. And so again, when I have the ability um, to reconnect with people. So, for example, the job I have, um, one of the people I've been hanging out with, I haven't seen him in months. And so when we do get together, it's just a fun time, and it brings my energy up. And when my energy is up, I love being able to be on that high and being able to um, uh, pass that high energy to other people.
mhm. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, thank you for that.
Oh
That's
yeah.
so powerful. I might want to circle back to that if we have time because I have some thoughts. Okay, the next one
Yep.
is what challenges you have children
So
and
that
how old are they? What challenges do
we
you have as a
have
parent?
we're a blended family. My wife has two daughters. One is I've lost count. She's 23, I think, and then our other daughter, um, just turned 18, and then my son is 16. So that's our little family.
Nice. Nice. So, what would you say would be just, I mean, parenting's hard. So, everybody has challenges, and I always like to know and hear from other parents what their biggest
You
challenges are
know,
as a parent or
I
one
don't
big
know
challenge
where
is
this came
as a parent.
from, but recently I started thinking more and more about this. And my wife's oldest daughter and I, we just don't have a connection, and I've accepted it. My wife's other daughter, her and I get along beautifully. I mean, I treat her as if she's blood. My son, I mean, he is my blood, and he's my pain. He's my wingman at times. He is just a great kid. So with that being said, the my bonus daughter, the 18-year-old, and my son, the one thing I've been thinking more and more about is how can I be a better dad to them? How can I be more of support to them? What can I do, to be a better parent? And I firmly believe that we parents are afraid to ask that question to our kids, Lauren. That what is it that they're lacking that we can help them with? And so I've been really thinking more and more about that is having those hard, deep one-on-one conversations and asking them what can I do to be a better parent to them. So that's where my thought process has been. And matter of fact, my son and I are going to be spending a lot of quality time this coming weekend. He has a hockey tournament, and so we have a hotel room. There's going to be again a lot of uh, he and I time, and so I really want to take advantage of having that hard conversation or conversations with him. Excuse me, with him, and asking him what can I do to be a better dad to him.
That is so wonderful. And it's so true that we don't ask our kids those kinds of questions. And why, why not? I'm so curious
Me
what he's going to
too. And
say,
I think the reason, this is just my thought here, Lauren, is the reason why we don't ask that question is we don't want to hear the answer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure that is probably it. That makes sense for sure. Well, that's awesome. And whatever the answer is, I'm sure you'll find a way to be that better parent, depending on what he says or whatever he says and shares. And that's a deep question. So it'll be great to hear what a
Yeah.
16-year-old has to say as well, especially in the teenage years. That's great. Okay. Um, okay, so this is about your marriage. What are the biggest challenges in your marriage?
You said
We all
you
have
were
them.
limited to an
Probably
hour, so um, it, it's a perfect timing question. Here's why, Lauren. This past weekend, my wife and I went up to Breckenridge, Colorado, and we firmly, and I mean this firmly, said, "All right, once a quarter, we need to get away. We need to be able to spend time together." And I think one of the biggest challenges is doing that and having uh, not just time together, Lauren, but again, what we were just talking about, but having open conversations, having, how can I be, a better husband? How can I be a better friend? How can I be more supportive? And I think again, it's having those difficult conversations, those open conversations that are probably one of the biggest challenges. And again, for me, I was an only child, so I'm not used to having a lot of conversations. I'm used to being alone. I'm used to being able to, as my wife would say, hide. And I think the biggest challenge now is just the two of us um, being being together and being more open. And um, yeah, I think that's probably it right now because I mean I have a job where I travel 100%. I'm only home on the weekends, and quite possibly this coming weekend I might not even see my wife. So it's for
Mhm.
me, um, having the ability, knowing that at let's say 6 o'clock in the morning, I know my wife is getting up and texting her. But it goes back to your question, and what challenges, it's the consistency of letting someone else know you're thinking about them, letting that person know how much you love them. you know if they're going through, let's say, maybe at work, they're having a presentation, and letting them know that you're thinking about them. So the biggest challenge right now for us is just having that time together.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, and I mean, based on what you just said too, is thinking about them. I think a lot of that has to do with being in the moment. So if you like for your example, if they have a presentation at work, that's happening, you're just, you're thinking about them, or, sending them a message, good luck or whatever it is. I feel too that we have to be able to be in the moment to remember that stuff as well. Because I think sometimes we always thinking ahead, and what did we have to do next, and worrying about this, and oh, I didn't do this. And I think we let some of those really important pieces go, and then we forget about them. So stepping back and taking that time to remember what's going on in our life at that moment, or in our significant other's life in that moment, is very, very important. And I think just as couples, or when you're with a significant other, with life and everything that we have going on, and if there's kids involved, it's hard to do that, and we forget that piece.
Yeah.
Okay. You're there, right? Okay, perfect. Okay. Next one. What are the biggest challenges in your family?
Dramatic pause. Yeah.
Think time.
Well, I guess this is where I get on my high horse when it comes to traditional families versus blended families. And as a blended family, we don't, and when I say we, my wife and I, we don't have the ability to see our kids on a consistent basis. Like I said earlier, my wife's oldest daughter, she's 23. She is out of state. She's going to graduate school. She is going to become a physician's assistant. So I know in that situation that my wife truly and deeply misses that ability to see her oldest on a daily basis. And then again we have uh, our little running joke, Lauren, with the other two. We call them the Wonder Twins. And the reason why we call them the Wonder Twins is my son and my bonus daughter, they're a year ish apart in age, but they really could be brother and sister. Other than um, my bonus daughter has blue eyes and my son has brown eyes, and so the struggle we have as a family is just consistently being together. And so, my son, many times we don't get to see him because he works, and I'm very proud of the fact that he's taken on that. I guess to just simply say, an adult mindset of understanding that work is important, work is vital, and so there are times again where I don't get to see him on my schedule, my every other weekend schedule. As a family as a whole,
Mhm.
I really miss, a few years ago when we were able to have all the kids together and have family meals. And I know it sounds old fashioned, but for me, being raised by a single mom and not having, quote unquote, a traditional family, I want the ability to have a cohesive family. But again, as a blended family versus a traditional family where a traditional family, you see your kids, day in, day out. As a blended family, we don't. We don't have those opportunities. We don't have that consistency. And so that's probably the biggest struggle I see personally in our family is just that with our dynamics, um, not having the ability to, see each other and talk to each other and, hear each other and just support each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you guys are together, do you really try to make the most of it? Do you, make sure that you're in the moment? How does it work when you guys are together?
It's it's really strange. For me, I get really intense and anxious because um, I I love serving others, and so when we are all together, I just want to try my best to make sure everybody is good, make sure everybody has a fork, make sure everybody has enough food or what have you. And so it honestly it stresses me out more. um, I don't know why, because it's those rare occasions, and because of those rare occasions, Lauren, um, I just want it to be the Rockwell painting. And so um,
Mm,
when we are all together, it's just interesting. I like to just sit back and listen and just observe and just see the interactions. And so, one of the things I'm truly blessed is that my wife's two daughters um, treat my son just like the annoying little brother that he can be. And it's
mhm,
just wonderful. And again, I'm truly blessed that we don't have the dramatics that you hear from other families of the bonus siblings not getting along, and um, you know one the bonus parent not getting along with the other their spouse's kids. And so again, I'm just truly blessed to be in the situation that we are.
mhm. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you wish for yourself or your marriage or parenting or family or all of it?
Well, it would encompass all of it, and that would be to live my purpose. And what I mean by that is, yes, we all need, uh, you know, not everybody has a job they hate. There are people out there that truly enjoy what they do. So for me, it would be the ability to live. And what I mean by live my purpose is to be able to take, for example, this podcast and make it a business. And um, you know, I really wish I would sell more books so I can be at home. So that would be my
Mhm,
magic wand, Lauren, is to excuse me, is to be at home. And that way I can, you know, uh, be there for my wife, and I can um, go to, during the springtime, be able to drive and go see my son play baseball. And during volleyball and basketball season for my bonus daughter, to be able to be in the stands and watch her. So if I had a magic wand, it would be the ability to be home and
mhm,
be uh, able to create a business where I don't have to stress about money. I don't have to stress about travel, or as I've been doing tonight, uh, doing stupid expense reports.
mhm, mhm. Okay, it's beautiful. Okay, last question. On a daily basis, what would you say your joy level is? One being nothing, 10 being amazing and all the time.
Oh man, oh gosh. This week would be a negative 200.
Mm,
Um, It's a tough question because it changes from day to day, week to week.
Mhm.
I, and quite honestly, Lauren, I probably don't have enough joy in my life right now.
Mhm.
It goes back to talking about my wife and I going away for the weekend. There was a lot of joy there. There will be a lot of joy, this coming weekend because I'll be able to spend a lot of time with my son, which I miss those abilities. And then the following weekend, my bonus daughter has a volleyball state tournament. So there'll be a lot of joy there, being able to watch her and support her. So there's probably, during the week, not a lot of joy, but on the weekends, more joy because to me, it's it's family time. Even during the week, it's family time, but it's more virtual, and
Mhm.
so on the weekends, it's more physical. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, there's a few things I'd love to circle back on, but some of them might mesh together. So, going back to the mindset question, um, you talked about the negative self-talk and trying to keep the positive mindset. And one thing that helps is when you're around, even though you're more of an introvert, being around your friends or people to work with or the people that you love being with, that really brings a high in. And I loved how you've said, being able to pass that energy to other people, because that's totally what happens when we have any kind of energy, whether it's positive or negative, that's always passed to the people around us. Um, so have you ever thought of or heard of savoring experiences at all by chance?
I have not.
Okay, so the reason why I bring this up is I feel like there's a few things in here that I think. Do you mind if I share something? I probably should ask you if I just give you a tip maybe and just share a couple thoughts based on what you said.
Lauren, I'm an open book. Bring it.
Okay. So there's
I'm on the couch right now, so it's all good.
all right. Okay. So there's a couple things that would fit in this. The class I had mentioned to you that I was doing, the science of well-being, it's basically about what really makes people happy. And so the professor talks about things that we think are going to make us happy. And she's presenting this to college students, so it's more of that audience, but we can relate in depending on where we are in our lives. But it'd be like, we think great grades are going to give us happiness, or having the perfect marriage, or having the white picket fence, or, having the new car that we've been wanting, those more materialistic things. And she has a lot of research that shows that they do bring us joy and happiness to an extent, but when we're living it all the time, we get used to it. So it doesn't bring us as much happiness. So you get this dream car of yours, and it's the car you've wanted for so many years, and you're driving it and you're like, this is the best. I'm so happy. But then after driving it for several months, several years, it's kind of like, you don't really think about it anymore. So it's our mind getting used to those things. And so she talks a lot about experiences and how important experiences are that can keep us more happy and joyful for longer periods of time. And it's interesting because she has a lot of research on this from other researchers who've researched these topics. And one of the things she talks about is learning how to savor those amazing experiences. And then how do we use those experiences to help keep our energy high and joyful during those times where it tends not to be. So you had mentioned during the week, it's harder to be, more joyful and happier during the week. But the weekends, it is with, when you're with your family and doing those kinds of things, or your wife. Or when you're with the people, that you can connect with during the week, people that you can hang out with. And you talked about how it's fun and it brings your energy up. So The savoring piece is figuring out how to latch on and hang on to that experience and then using it. So some of her suggestions are, when you have that experience that creates so much joy and your energy is high and you're riding high and you feel so good, how do we keep that going? Or when we're in that funk, how can we use that experience to get us back up into that high energy and experience that? And so some of the suggestions she talks about is, you know, calling somebody up and say, hey, I had this most amazing experience. I have to tell you about that. And if you've done that before, you probably can remember the feeling that you have. You're smiling big, your heart probably starts pounding really fast. You get chills, whatever it may be, when you're really sharing and telling somebody about that experience. The other thing she talked about is replaying that experience in your head like it's a movie. So maybe taking a few minutes and stopping and thinking, okay, remember last weekend when my wife and I went away and how amazing and joyful that experience was? And you're just like replaying it in your head like you're there again. And even just by doing those two things can make that experience last longer, and then our joy level and our happiness lasts longer for extended periods of time. And so just some of a couple of the things that you had talked about was made me think, wow, that could be, you starting to practice or just figuring out how to, or learning how to savor experiences more could really help. When you think about your weeks at work, during the week, if that's that time that you don't have a lot of joy, savoring and going back to the weekend prior that was so joyful and wonderful, or a couple of weeks prior that was so joyful and wonder, and taking a few minutes to really think about how that weekend was, what happened, what you did, who were you with, what was it that actually made it so joyful, could really, I bet, would really help just elevate your joy level even during a time where you're not in that experience. So does that make sense at all?
Yeah, and as you were talking, I was taking notes too, and so three things that came to mind right away, especially when you're talking about how at times we think that if we have this money, it's going to make us happy. Well, one of my favorite TEDx talks is from Sean Anker, who did the Happiness Factor, and so he talks a lot about um, many, many, many studies have proven what you were just talking about, that money doesn't make you happy. And to correlate that, to kind of morph, is one of the people I follow on Instagram is Jesse Itzler, who is um, he's better known as an entrepreneur, but he's also married to Sarah Blakely, who's the creator of Spanx, and the two of them are just hilarious to watch. But Jesse talks a lot about not our work resume, but our life resume. And I totally agree with what you were just saying, because I think that maybe there's excuse me, times where, not I mean, I'm going to say us as a generalization, but I'm also going to say in this situation I need to create more of a life resume than again, it goes back to what you were saying, experiences, having experiences and reliving experiences. So one thing I used to do, and I got this from watching I don't know what you call it, the documentary, the movie from The Secret, and that was one gentleman talked about keeping a gratitude rock in his pocket. And one year, I was in San Diego. My son, ironically, had a hockey tournament there, and I remembered that moment from The Secret. And so I grabbed, I just found a shell on the beach, and I used to keep that in my pocket to remind me when I was having, a down day, the happiness of that time, of being there to support my son, being there to support his teammates, being there with one of my good friends whose son played on the team too, and how the four of us just had a great time spending time together. And so I firmly believe that we forget about those things, about um, life events, and that we do at times maybe take life for granted, that we don't live in those moments, that we don't relive those moments to remember that
Mhm.
life is pretty
Yeah.
good at times.
Yeah, I love oh my gosh, I love The Secret and the shell from the beach. I mean, that's a perfect example right there. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I don't have any more questions. So this has been awesome. It was just
What?
a few.
All right.
Well, I hope that that helps a little bit and can help shift. And I would love to hear if you notice anything different, if that's something you try to choose to try, if you choose to try to implement or do.
I think the one thing after speaking to you, I do need to go back, and I know where that shell is at the house, and I do need to remember to
Mhm.
carry that with me, to put myself in a, a more positive state. And so, yeah, speaking to you, like I said, Lauren, I'm an open book, and I'm so grateful that you were willing to do this.
Well, thank you. And I am grateful that you were willing to do this. Not people, some people do have a hard time sharing this and going into depth. So it helps me out a lot as well, just to see, what people's main struggles are in certain areas. So I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Blending the Family, the podcast. Thank you for listening. And it once again proves that anyone can host a podcast. Wait, please leave a rating and review. However, you get this podcast, whether it's through the mail or from your neighbor or listening in under the couch. I don't know. You tell me.